Please remember that God uses Good Fridays to bring about Easters. Today is Good Friday, April 7th, 2023. Please look at what happened to Julian Bond, Georgia, state representative who was against the Vietnam War. Please review what happened to the Reverend Congressman Adam Clayton Powell Jr., the first African-American congressman of the state of New York, who passed tremendous legislation as chairman of the Education Labor Committee, and then was expelled for standing up for people of color, basically, and made a freshman. And later the Supreme Court said what Congress did then was wrong. So this is all echo of history. Democrats must use this opportunity to bring all people together to respond to the Southern strategy. To remember what Dr. King said in his March 25th, 1965 speech there in Montgomery, Alabama, how in the 19th century, white men and black men voted together in fusion coalitions. It's a paraphrase. They weren't concerned about the color of skin. They voted economics. Hey, the Civil Rights Act of 1875 was passed. It said treat everyone equally. And Dr. King said that bill was stronger than the one passed in 1964, on January 2nd, 1964. And then you had the Supreme Court got rid of that 1875 Civil Rights Act in the 1883 civil rights cases. Then you had Plessy versus Ferguson in 1896, with Plessy was 7/8 white and 1/8 African blood, but not discernible, according to the Supreme Court. And he said, hey, get to the back of the train, huh? One race, human race, we're all human. And look at the crowds. Look at the crowds who are supporting these African-American legislators. Young men, 27 and 28 years old, right? And also the white legislator, white female, who, by the way, was not expelled, right? And listen to what she said about that. One race, human race, all human.
Go tonight, I want to share just a little bit more of the remarks made in the Tennessee State Capitol yesterday by Justin Jones on a day when he and another black lawmaker were expelled from the General Assembly by Republican lawmakers.
What we see today is a lynch mob assembled to not lynch me, but our democratic process. This is a historic day for Tennessee, but it may mark a very dark day for Tennessee because it will signal to the nation that there is no democracy in this state.
We end with a programming note. I hope you will be watching when ousted Tennessee State Representative Justin Jones will be my guest tomorrow on the Saturday show, along with California Democratic Congresswoman Barbara Lee, for whom he interned. That's at 9 a.m. Eastern here on MSNBC. I will also see you again on Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern for the Sunday show. That is tonight's last word. Thanks for watching. The 11th hour with Stephanie Ruhle starts now.
Tonight, nationwide outrage growing after 2 black members are expelled from the Tennessee legislature, and how this moment is so much bigger than Nashville. Then, that long-awaited abortion pill ruling from a Texas judge is in, what it means for access across the country, and what comes next. And our Friday nightcap is here with other major stories of the week and their MVPs as the 11th hour gets underway right now. Good evening once again. I'm Stephanie Ruhle. It is Friday and our nightcap is standing by to break down another historic news week. So don't go anywhere, but we're going to start this broadcast again back in the city of Nashville, where 2 black state lawmakers were expelled from the Tennessee legislature after peacefully protesting against gun violence in the House chamber. But former state representative Justin Jones might not be former for long. The majority of the Nashville City Council say they will vote to reinstate him until a special election can be held. The Tennessee expulsions have caused national outrage. President Biden posted this photo of his virtual meeting with what were now known as the Tennessee Three earlier. Vice President Harris called the situation undemocratic and dangerous and traveled to Nashville today to meet with the expelled lawmakers. Here's just some of what has been happening over the last 24 hours.
We called for you all to ban assault weapons, and you respond with an assault on democracy.
Free, 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 Tennessee, free.
Just
Just because you have power doesn't give you the right to abuse it.
But you will not be victorious because there are generations of young people who see what is going on.
Gloria, why do you feel like there was a difference in the outcome between you and your colleague?
It might have to do with the color of our skin.
It looked like a Jim Crow era trial.
The world is watching Tennessee. And yet again, they're watching it for the wrong reasons. Quite frankly, I'm exhausted.
I still got hope because I know we are still here and we will never quit.
The truth must never be stifled or silenced when it is on behalf of the people. And my dear friend and colleague Simone Sanders went down to Nashville and sat down with the expelled legislators, Justin Pearson and Justin Jones, earlier this evening.
This whole process has been, a farce of our due process. It's been a farce of our constitutional, system of government. And so, everything about this, even the trial that they had, it was the verdict was decided before we even started talking.
We're not going to quit fighting. And that's the reality. We believe it's still possible, even in a state like this, that real gun reform legislation that protects communities, that protects schools, is possible.
Joining me now, Senator Raphael Warnock, a Democrat from Georgia. Senator, it was hard just to sit there and realize, let it sink in what has happened in the last 36 hours. What's your reaction to all of it?
Well, it's deeply painful. And like Americans and people all of goodwill across Tennessee and across our country, I was deeply disturbed by what I witnessed. And I think it's important for us to keep all of this in perspective. We must not forget that all of this happened on the heels of the unthinkable. 9-year-olds slaughtered in a school, along with those charged with the care of those 9-year-olds in a school run by a church. And in the wake of that, American citizens stood up protesting and calling on their legislators to respond. And rather than the legislature responding to the violence, they decided to silence members of their own body who were protesting nonviolently in response to the violence that started all of this in the first place. All of us should be deeply concerned, even if we have differences of opinion about the gun safety issue and what the best route is. This is on its head, undemocratic, un-American, unacceptable. And I think that at the end of the day, the people are going to get their voice back in their house.
It's so important to remember why these lawmakers were protesting to begin with. And Gloria Johnson said it herself. She was the one who wasn't expelled. She said, this is about race. I want to share what one of the lawmakers who was expelled, Justin Jones, said to us last night on this show. Please watch this.
Just a few weeks ago, we had a member, Representative Paul Sherrill, go on committee and say we should bring back lynching. He said we should bring back hanging by a tree, the death penalty here, by hanging by a tree, and laughed and smirked about it. This is the body where we had a statue of the KKK that every time you pass into the House chamber, you pass a statue of the first KKK Grand Wizard. And we finally got that removed.
We should bring back lynching. How do we move forward from that?
Sadly, we are living through a moment in our country where, at least in parts of our politics and parts of our country, there are those who feel that racism is not only acceptable, it's fashionable. I'm a post-civil rights generation baby. Part of what Martin Luther King Jr. did for us was that not only did he push hard, he and those who fought alongside him, against systemic racism, he made it unpopular and socially unacceptable. But we have seen over the last 6 years a reemergence of a kind of unabashed, unembarrassed bigotry that is should be deeply shocking to the conscience of anybody who believes in what's right, who believes in what's true. And we see this not only in this Tennessee legislature, but we see it in other places as well. But I want to speak to this issue of them expelling these young black men. And I agree with their cohort, this courageous white sister who stood there with them. And she said that the color of her skin has a lot to do with the fact that they were expelled and she was not. I agree with her. And I think that we've got to stand up in this moment. We have to call it what it is. And people who care about this country, who believe in democracy, who believe in the covenant that we have with one another, have to push hard against this. Indeed, I intend to do everything that I can as a member of the United States Senate and just as a citizen and as a person of faith.
I want to go back to the first thing you brought up that people might have forgotten or have gotten distracted by. All of this started after young people, children and teenagers, came to the Tennessee Capitol to protest gun violence. Given that that's what started this, but now here we are facing these expulsions and all these other terrible issues, is there any chance we're going to actually get something done on guns?
Well, we certainly need to. I'm proud of the fact that in the last Congress, we, for the first time in 30 years, after there was a killing at another school, passed a bipartisan gun safety law. Now, while I think that was an important step forward, clearly it's not enough. We should not be comfortable seeing 9-year-olds slaughtered in the classroom. It's not enough. And here is why what happened this week is such a flashpoint with them expelling the legislators. What we know about the Tennessee legislature is that it is deeply gerrymandered. And so those who have been playing games with the line, effectively pushing the people's voices out of their own democracy through gerrymandering, now this week took a step that was shocking, but if you think about it, it shouldn't be surprising. As they expelled these two legislators, they have convinced themselves that the people's house is their house. And so they have effectively evicted the people out of their own house. We see it in Tennessee. I think in a real sense, we see it at the federal level as well. The people of America on the left and the right have far more agreement on the gun safety issue, our differences notwithstanding, than what we see reflected in the legislation that we've been able to pass. And that is true to the degree to which people's voices have been squeezed out of their democracy. Most Americans believe that we ought to have universal background checks. Most Americans believe that we ought to ban assault weapons. And the fact that we can't get it done, haven't been able to get it done so far, is indicative of the ways in which there are those who have hijacked our democracy. And so they haven't simply expelled these legislators. They have effectively evicted the people of their districts out of their own house. And I think the people see this, they're witnessing it. It has sent shock waves across that state, all across our country, and the people are coming back to get their democracy.
Sir, before I let you leave, I want to tap into your other job, your more important one. You are a reverend, a man of faith. Earlier today, you tweeted about Tennessee on this day, Good Friday. What lessons can we learn here?
Well, I tweeted earlier today that as we witness these events, today is Good Friday. We call it Good Friday, but that day it didn't feel like a Good Friday at all. It felt like a terrible Friday. But we know the rest of that story. I believe that Good Friday reminds us that evil always goes too far, and therefore it contains within itself the seeds of its own demise. This is a difficult moment. It's a dark day, but Sunday comes. Truth crushed to earth will rise again. Dr. King said that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Thank God for these young legislators. We have to stand with them and keep bending that arc toward justice and closer to our ideals. If we can't save our own children, what are we doing? We have to stand up in this moment, protect them, and protect the democracy at the same time.
Amen to that, sir. Senator Warnock, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let's dig deeper and bring in my friend and colleague, MSNBC host Symone Sanders Townsend. She was Vice President Harris's chief spokesperson and assistant Democratic leader of the Tennessee State Legislature, Representative Harold Love. He is also the president-elect of the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. Harold, what is next for your caucus?
Well, the next thing for our caucus is to get some bills we have filed around gun legislation out of a delayed bills committee. Our process allows for those bills to come out if the speaker and the majority leader and the minority leader will agree on those bills to come out.
Symone, you spoke to Justin Jones and Justin Pearson earlier this evening. What was your takeaway?
Thanks so much for having me, Stephanie, and playing the clip. My takeaway from that, and I also spoke to State Representative Johnson, and frankly, I spoke with Representative Love earlier today as well, and we will see that interview on Sunday on Symone. But my takeaway from all of these conversations down in Nashville is that first and foremost, what the protests were about was the shooting at Covenant School. And that shooting and the inaction, frankly, by the Tennessee State Legislature, specifically the Republicans in that body, has galvanized a movement of young people in this state. The representatives, when I spoke with them this evening, they were not deterred by the adversity that they had faced, and they are squarely understanding that this moment is not specifically about them. It is about the people that they represent, and again, pulling the hood, for lack of a better term, off of what has consistently been happening in the Tennessee State Legislature.
Harold, have you spoken to any of your Republican colleagues in the last 24 hours?
I haven't spoken to any of them since we left the House floor.
It must be a very difficult time. Symone, do you think these Republican members are prepared for the backlash that's already happening? I mean, it wasn't accidental that they did this. They knew what would come. They knew the firestorm they were creating.
Stephanie, I don't think they are prepared. And frankly, you know, Representative Love, I think, is being very modest. But Representative Love, along with the leader, the Democratic leader of the House today, and the minority leader of the Senate and the chairman of the Black Caucus, they told me that on Monday, after children and 3 adults were murdered at school, that Republicans in both the legislature, in the House and the Senate came to them and said, "We want to work with you on this." I asked the legislators today, "What happened to the bill? Where's the bill?" And they said, "Well, we've been working on it. There's a process." But the Republicans in the state legislature, they did find time to expel the 2 youngest members, 2 young Black men of the body. So I think it speaks volumes to where their priorities are. But Representative Love and his colleagues, they are undeterred. And I found it heartening, frankly, that even amidst everything that has happened, the assistant leader, the Dem leader, they are willing to talk to their Republican colleagues, and they want to get a bill on the floor. And from the perspective of the legislators who have sparked this movement, Pearson, Jones, and Johnson, they understand their role here. And they are not going to let up. And they are, frankly, I think, gearing up for a fight, because there is language in the House resolution that suggests that they cannot be reseated before the next session.
Representative Love, yesterday was a sad day for democracy. That's exactly what we just heard from Senator Warnock. How do you feel about the future of Tennessee?
Well, I've been in the legislature for 11 years, and I echo those sentiments. That was one of the saddest days that I've experienced. And that was what I tried to communicate to my colleagues as we were talking the days before the vote, trying to get them to understand that, 1, the actions by my colleagues did not warrant expulsion. And 2, if they did this, it would not be something that went away quietly. We, of course, would not stop fighting for our colleagues. But more than that, you think about this. You're expelling a member that was duly elected by their constituents, which means now you have at least 78,000 people per legislator who's not being represented. How can we talk about we are for representing the people, this is the people's house, as Senator Warnock said, when you kick out the very ones who are supposed to speak for them? And so for me, I still do have hope, because my colleagues and I, along with the 2 members that are expelled, are looking for ways that we can get them with their county commissions and the Metro Council here in Nashville to get them appointed back to those positions so they can at least engage the process. We have at least 3 to 4 weeks left in our legislative session, and we still have time to get some things done. But I'll tell you something, Democrats are ready to work on gun reform and many other measures to keep our people safe, but we want our colleagues to also join us in this fight.
Thank you both for being here. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to let the entire country understand what is happening in Tennessee tonight. Simone Sanders Townsend, State Representative Harold Love, thank you both. You can watch all of Simone's interview with the Tennessee Three on her show tomorrow at 4 p.m. right here on MSNBC. But right here on the 11th hour next, you must stick around. A Trump-appointed federal judge has suspended the FDA's approval of a key abortion drug. Barbara McQuaid is here to explain what in the world is going on. And later, our Friday nightcap is here on all the big news of the week, from Donald Trump's arraignment to those students protesting gun violence around the country. The 11th hour just getting underway on a Friday night.
It's very important that we keep on bringing people together. There's one race, human race for all human, and everyone has a right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Everyone on this planet known as Earth. God bless you. God keep you.